one of our success stories is a gentleman who, when I met him, was a detective in the Minneapolis police force. And he had finally gotten fed up with police work and was able to put together on a business that he never in his life prior to us imagined that he could buy a company of that stature that was a premier company in that industry. And I spoke to him a couple of years ago when he had just closed a deal in Los Angeles with a royal family who has a mansion in Beverly Hills. So today, he's a guy who deals with royalty and ultra high net worth individuals here throughout the country. This was just before, by the way, Minneapolis became the center of the universe with the George Floyd incident that happened there. So he decided that he had enough of that and he wanted to do something different. He came to me with the idea of helping him to buy a company. He took our Bizar Financing Pro course, which is a very detailed, very deep course of exactly how to do this. All the methods, all the knowledge that we have is packed into that course. We have tools packed into the course that enable businesses to be evaluated very quickly just by plugging into our Excel spreadsheets the financial numbers off the financial statements or the tax returns of the company, and we can calculate very quickly what the price of that company should be, a very good range of what the price should be. We have a form called the Doable Deal Analyzer, and what that does, again, same numbers come in off the financial statements back from several years, so we know the trends of the company. But then automatically that tells us when we buy the company based on the purchase price, what our cash flow is going to be, how much debt we're going to have, how we're going to amortize that debt. So things that are very complex are automatically calculated through these forms very quickly. And by adjusting the forms, it shows us how to negotiate with the seller to get the price where it should be and to get the terms of the purchase where it should be, so that the amount of cash flow that the business will generate will more than pay for the company and have surplus left over to support the growth of the company that we can bring to it. These are the kind of tools that we have. When this gentleman came to me, he went through the Bizar Financing Pro course, still felt that he needed some help, and so he advanced to another program that we have, which is called Partners in Business Acquisition. And in that program, we literally partner with him to acquire the company. One of the first things that we have to do is identify, well, what kind of business do you want to own? Because we want the person to own a business that they're passionate about, that they enjoy, that they have core competencies that can be used to be successful in the business, that they certainly are going to love what they're doing every day, and that they have the energy to put into it and the dedication to put into it to make it happen. Finding the right company is key to that. He originally thought what he wanted to own was a securities firm. In other words, a company that provided bodyguards and would have contracts that they protect facilities, protect homes, protect people while they're traveling. But basically, it's a security company. So that's what he went out to look for, and he found a couple. We started negotiating with the sellers. For some reason, it wasn't coming together. But while he was looking for that company, he stumbled across a company in Florida. Remember, he's in Minneapolis. He stumbled across a company in Florida that did something that was almost like a hobby of his that he hadn't really thought about as a business. But what this company did is they were in the home automation business. And some of their products that they install into homes are things like home theaters, massive 120-inch screens with incredible sound equipment, and then a theater configuration so a family and guests could sit there in their room in their mansion and watch these on this home theater. That all of the home automation like windows and doors and curtains and blinds and all those things were all operated at the touch of a switch, where there'd be a central console in the home and you could make the TV drop down in a normal room, drop down from the ceiling or come up from the floor. Everything you needed to automate that home, and it's all high-end stuff. It did it for very wealthy people on very expensive homes. And he was enamored with that company and decided it's not a security company. It had security systems in it as part of it, but he decided that was the kind of company he'd want to own. So we targeted that company. We did something that he was very adept at, that he learned in our program, which is to build what we call a cosmic bond with the seller, so that he and the seller, as they're negotiating and he's learning more about that business, that they build a cosmic bond together. They start to know each other, like each other, trust each other, and respect each other. And when the relationship gets to that point, what happens is that the seller literally will bend over backwards to help you acquire their business. And they get very flexible on terms. They agree to stay on for a long period of time and help support your transition into the business. that you, during that period, get to learn about more of the business. You start to work a little bit with the seller, and you get very comfortable with the things that you're going to have to do to run it. And all those things happen over a 3 or 4 or 5 month period of time. The financing of this business turned out to be very difficult. And one of the reasons was that the price was high in terms of what the seller wanted for the company. And so trying to come up with the financing vehicles for that actually turned out to be difficult. What also happened over that period of time was the seller became more and more flexible, because he started to realize, because of buyers that came before that didn't buy, and for people that he still continued to discuss with the value of his company, he began to realize that he was not going to find a buyer who could really afford that price because of the dynamics of the business. So eventually, over that little bit of time, he got more flexible with the price, a little more flexible with the terms. And then finally, the client of ours, our student, was able to negotiate a loan for the purchase of that business with the Small Business Administration, a guarantee. So he was able to complete that. He got an investor who put up $100,000 to be a part of the business. But it turns out that the investor didn't want equity in the business. He wanted what's called a cash-on-cash return for his money. So he was going to put up $100,000, and in 6 months to a year, I don't remember the exact amount of time, he would get his money back plus a 15% return on his money for the 6 months. So that's a lot of return for your 6 months' money. But in the way we had structured the deal, the business in its final funding would generate enough additional cash to pay off that $100,000 loan. So for $50,000, he had his equity partner that made it possible for him to close that deal. So that's an example of creative funding. It's an example of tenacity to see it through. It's an example of building a cosmic bond with the seller, so they'll be patient with you, they'll work with you, they'll eventually they'll be flexible enough with the terms to make it happen. And that experience put him into the ownership of this incredible business that was doing $6 million a year in sales, and that's revenue, not sales. That's revenue to his company. All right, $6 million a year in revenue to his company, out of which the EBITDA of that company, is the terms we would talk with today, was about $1 million a year. Okay, so that was a business that a police officer out of Minneapolis who retired out of the police force was able to put together on a business that he never in his life prior to us imagined that he could buy a company of that stature that was a premier company in that industry. This is a company that was doing $100,000, $500,000, $1 million installations into 30, 50, $60 million mansions. And I spoke to him a couple of years ago when he had just closed a deal in Los Angeles with a royal family who has a house in Beverly Hills, or a mansion in Beverly Hills, where that one deal put over $4 million worth of home automation and audio and video and all the things that he does into that home. And so today, he's a guy who deals with royalty, and ultra high net worth individuals here throughout the country in putting in these systems into their homes. So to me, if you can go from a police officer to the owner of such a dynamic business in a field that you love and that your core competency support, there's just nothing better than that. And if you want to learn more about that, just push that button or put more words into that message, press the submit button, and get in touch with us, and we'll show you how it is that we can work with you.